What is up, guys? Welcome back to another episode. So it feels fitting to do the recap, the follow-up of the 100 for 100 challenge, or the 10,000 kilo of volume and 100 kilometers of running. How did we go on? Well, it was good. I wouldn't say we smashed it, but we completed it. I managed to see it through, and I done the episode on Sunday night, obviously the one before this, and I was saying to you guys, if you've listened to that who knows where I'm going to end up. But I know that I was trying to make excuses, but I was really nervous and saying I will finish this. That was a big challenge. So I thought, in today's episode, let me break it down. I'll walk you through how the day went, what happened on the lead up to it. But I think where we need to start with this has to be, why on earth did we do something so crazy? I touched on it a little bit on the previous episode, but what caused, or what was running through my mind to think, Dale, why don't you just do 100 kilometers and 100 and bench 100 kilos for 100 reps all on the same day? In the name of what? Like, what are you doing? Because you never done it for charity, you never done it for anything else. Like, what was the point in that? But first, I'm going to take this jumper off. So all in, this challenge took me way longer than I thought. I was estimating to be finished on the bench within 30 minutes, and I was hoping, I didn't really know what was going to happen with the runs, if I'm being honest, but I was hoping to do the runs around about 15 hours, but it took way longer than that. I think total time was about 21 hours. In terms of moving time, I don't know where it ended up. I think it might have been 17 hours for the run, or maybe even 18 hours for the run, and took about 45 minutes for the bench. So yeah, way longer than I thought. We were fighting a lot of demons, and it was very, very interesting to see where my headspace went. I've actually got a lot of mental growth, as you would expect from doing something crazy like this. But as I said, like, let's start with why. What was the reason for this? Well, on the last episode I said, well, if you're a long-term listener, you would have heard me back on, I don't know, episode. It was after we had David Dooher on the show. In fact, it might have even been before that, because that's when I started thinking, as I was turning 30, I wanted to do this big, massive challenge. I wanted to do something that people hadn't done before. I wanted to do something that, like, it wasn't just a marathon. And I'm not saying that these things are easy, but there's thousands, and if not millions of people actually that have, maybe not millions, but hundreds of thousands of people that have completed marathons, right? And I thought to myself, I want to do like a big challenge. I want to do something that really tests my mind, and obviously be so physically demanding that I want to give up almost as soon as I start. And originally the idea was to put a squat bar on my back and climb up a hill. That's what I thought. I thought, I'll do a squat bar and I'll climb up Tinto. And then I thought, well, what's the biggest mountain in Scotland? I was like, maybe I'll do, I think I was going to do the Cobbler. I think that's where my head was at, because that was a hill that I'd often climbed. And then I came across David Dooher, who'd done Ben Nevis, and he put 100 kilos on his back. And I thought, fuck me, man. I was like, that is insane. I was like, do I do that and try and go heavier, or do I just do something completely different? And that's how we met David. And if you haven't listened to that episode, oh my God, honestly is one of my favourite episodes. I'll link it below in the show notes. In fact, let me try and find which episode it was. So it was episode 114. So this is when I was having the conversation with James, when he was with us on the podcast, and we're talking about different things of like challenging your mental resilience. Now, for me, where I'm at the point in my life, I was like, I want to do something crazy. I want to do something crazy with fitness. Fitness is my pride and my joy, but I want to push the boundaries of physical strength, not even physical endurance, just total physical output that is then going to allow me to grow mentally. And I remember saying to James, I was like, I might actually carry 100 kilos on my back and do something like what David done. And straight away, he was like, you're mental. Like, you won't be able to do that. That's what he was saying to me. And that's what people around me were saying to me. So I was like, that is a crazy thing to do. And you know what? There was a part of me that let that chat consume my mind. Instead of just going, right, here's the date I'm doing it, I'm going to train towards it. Boom. I thought, right, I'll do it later in the year. And then later in the year came, I never done it. And I thought, right, I'll do it at the start of, when was this actually? I want to say this was Yeah, so this was 2013, this conversation. So as we got into 2014, I was like, right, I've turned 30. I never done it on my 30th. I didn't feel like I let myself down. I just other things. I never prioritised it enough. And 2024, I wrote down goals. I'm going to do a big challenge. And High Rocks was one of them, but a physical demanding challenge that not that no one else had ever done, but there was only like a handful of people that attempted or completed a challenge. Didn't know what it was going to be. Had an idea for carrying 100 kilos on my back and doing a distance. The plan was maybe going to be 100 kilometres or 100 miles. That was in the back of my mind. And 2024 was a bit of a mental year, as all years are. Like, there's just things that get in the way, relationships, friendships, all this sort of stuff. Like, so yeah, we then get to the end of the year, and I was like, damn, never scratched that itch. Funny side note here. I posted on my Instagram. I had an itch and I scratched it, and my mind was so bamboozled or just done in from that challenge that I nearly wrote, I had a scratch, so I itched it. that's how mentally like fucked I was off the back of this. But anyway, I was a wee bit disheartened that I never done that. And throughout last year, what did I start doing? I started running more. I never thought I would run a marathon. I was never interested in long distance running. I have to be fully transparent here. To go into that long distance running category and try and retain the strength that I like to have, and I wouldn't even go as far as saying muscle mass. I'm not too fussed on how I necessarily look, but I like to perform good, and a big part of that is my squats and my deadlifts and all those sort of lifts. So I know if I push the training and I push the boundaries to go into some of these races, it's something I'll do as a milestone. But in terms of like doing it for practice and training, it just never really crossed my mind. So I'm doing 5Ks here and there, do 7Ks, 10Ks. I never ran any more than a 10K, and I can go back in my Garmin to prove this. There is one training day that I done back in early 2024, where I found a new path behind where we stay, and I decided just to run the length of it and then run back. And that was an hour and a half on my feet. I think it was like 14 kilometres or maybe it was 16 kilometres. Anyway, that was the longest distance I had ever ran. But last year, I got into running. I felt I was getting better at it, but it was all for the purpose of, one, enjoying the process of running, but also two, knowing that we've got High Rocks coming up or we're training for High Rocks. There has to be an element of getting better at running. That's the weakest station for me, or it's the weakest element. So yeah, that's happening. We get to Christmas, and it's on the lead up to Christmas, and I'm watching mad stuff on YouTube, mad combinations of crazy feats of strength and crazy endurance runs. And I watched someone run, I don't know if it was one of Fergus Crawley's videos or someone else who runs a crazy long distance. I don't remember what video it was, but what I do remember is I was like, oh man, that's pretty cool. I could never do that. That was the thought that came into my head. And I was like, whoa, that's not like me. I'm normally like the first person to gas everybody else. Like, you can do anything that you put your mind to, need a training plan obviously, and just kind of chip away and work towards it. And I thought to myself, if that's the frame of mind I've got for that, like what's going on there? Why is that? And maybe it was the build up, like I said, of not a misconception, but losing my muscle mass, which essentially you guys will know, like attacking my identity, because I'm known as the bigger guy, I guess, my strength and all that sort of stuff then going. So it's then changing the person who I am. And anyway, that I was like, oh, didn't expect that. So nothing happens with this. And then I'm having a conversation with someone in my DMs, and they replied to a story or something like that about going into the gym. And they're saying, I was like finding it really difficult to get in the gym. And I was like, look, I get that, but it's going to be a lot easier than you think. And they said, that's easy for you because you work in a gym, or it's because you I can't remember the words. It was like, that's easy for you because you're in the gym all the time or something like that. And you know what? That's what ultimately triggered me to go, fuck, I need to do something that I've said I could never do. Like, what is something that I've done? Straight away, I linked back to that thought that was, I don't know, maybe a couple of weeks beforehand, and decided, it's like, I'm going to run 100 kilometers. And then I was thinking to myself, I was like, how do I make this even more crazier? And I'll tell you why. Like, the crazy part is the 100 kilometers difficult, right? And it's impressive, an impressive feat in itself. But I still wanted to take that more. I was like, okay, tons of people have ran 100 kilometers. It is doable. The human body is capable of doing that. And some people have done crazy squat challenges, crazy deadlift challenges. And I just thought, I don't know why I picked bench. I'll tell you a lie. I put on a poll when I do these daily debates on Instagram. If you don't follow me there, every day I post a poll and like to get people's opinions on. And I posted, what's more impressive, benching 100 kilos or running 100 kilometers? And weirdly enough, that had nothing to do with this challenge. But I thought, I could do why don't I try and do them both? And then this is where the mind started spiraling. And I thought, right, okay, if I bench 100 kilos 100 times, that's 10,000 kilo of volume. I can't run a 10K because that's not that impressive. I was nearly running 100 laps around a track. I wanted to do this on a track. Why? Honestly, I think it's better. Some of you guys might think I'm crazy, but I think running on a track's better. However, those last like 30 kilometres, it would have been nice to have a distance just to work towards and just go for it, because they got quite repetitive, as you can imagine, 250 laps of a track. So the challenge was going to be 100 kilos, benching 100 kilos 100 times and then doing 100 laps of the track, which was a 40k. So it just brings it just shy of a marathon, but I would have done two more k. And I was like, okay, that's a cool challenge. And I thought, nah, you literally said on that video that popped up where the guy was running 100 kilometers, he said, I could never do that. And in my head, I'd made peace with your attempting a 100 kilometer run. Now, what makes this even more mental, this is between Christmas and New Year, so I'm sure we were up at the lodges and I'm thinking about this. And I even said it to my brother like the week before, and I said it to Jill, but I never really set a date. And the videographer I worked with, Graham, he was posting like projects for January, and I thought, if I don't jump on this just now, if I can somehow commit an external like factor to this, I'll fucking do this. And yeah, that's what happened. So in the space of 3 to 4 weeks, I went from my longest run ever being a 16k way back in early January. Now I'm in the middle of a high rocks training, so I'm consistently running like 5 to 10k. Maybe my total volume is maybe 30 to I think 35k on a good week of total running throughout the week. So I gave myself 3 weeks. And then I get it locked in, I set the date, and I post about it 5 days before the event kicks off. And that's when it became real. It didn't become real when I'd booked Graham to shoot some of the behind the scenes and do a mini docu-series. It became real when I put it out on Instagram, and I was like, oh shit. I was like, here we go. So anyway, that's kind of why it started. And like on the lead up to it, I never really had sleepless nights. The night before is probably when the nervousness kicked in, and I was like, shit, man. I was like, tomorrow's the day. Even though this is only a thing that you decided to do a couple of weeks beforehand, this is something you've said you would be doing over the last couple of years, and you've never done it, and this is your chance to do it. And that's really where it came down to. And I put on my poll, I was like, who thinks I'm going to complete this, and who thinks I'm going to give it a good shot? And people said I'm going to complete it, and then rightly so, people said, you're going to give it a good shot. You're no fucking trained for this. It's absolutely mental. Now, full transparency, if I've got a client that's wanting to work towards a challenge, I'm talking them into training up for that challenge. But, you know, it's always like do as I say, not as I do type of thing. And this was a prime example of this. I was confident in my capabilities, but more so my physical output. I was confident that would handle up from a injury perspective, because I train reasonably smart, right? And I train movement patterns. I train them in compound lifts, and I'll take care of mobility. I'll do. I don't tend to overtrain. I would say that's a lie. I was overtraining a wee bit more with just the whole high rocks split coming up. I think you need to when you are doing something you want to win, because it's an unhealthy obsession at that point, and it becomes the top level of the sport. But I know my training style for the last 10 years has been good. It's been pretty moderate, pushing the boundaries within reason and pushing the boundaries smartly. So when it came to the bench press, I think there was some people were like, scared in case you tear your pec and those sort of things. That never really crossed my mind, because I know I warm up well. I know I'm consistently training that movement pattern, so the muscle fibers and everything there, they're pretty much well adjusted, maybe not to the volume, but well adjusted to the movement pattern. And it was just a matter of seeing what happens on the day. When it came to the run, however, that was the part that I knew I was going to get most of the mental battle with. And I'll come on to a sec with sort of breakdown of that. So yeah, night before, all this is going through my mind. What are you doing? Why could you just not have a normal Sunday? Just the usual stuff that came in. And then the day kicked off. So we got up. I had about 1,600 calories for breakfast. I jumped into, came up to the gym. Was looking to kick off at 8, ended up kicking off at 8:30, and we started repping for 100 kilos. We got 10. My plan was to do 90 seconds rest up until I couldn't hit the rep range I was trying to hit. So I wanted to do 10 and 10 first, and then I would do reps of 5 and seeing if I can just prolong that. So 90 seconds rest, 10, got another 10, and then it just got so heavy. 20 reps in, I kid you not, I'm like, what is going on here? So we changed it up to 5 reps, 90 seconds, and then I got to rep 70, and then I failed. I think I failed rep 70, so 66, 7, 8, 69, go for rep 70, and I completely failed it, dropped it on my chest, chucked the bar off, and then I thought, right, I'm going to have to do reps of 3, reps of 4. Gave myself 2-minute rest, tried for 5, got it, and then changed it up to 4, and then I had 4 reps, three or 4 reps left to hit the 100, and I missed the last rep, so I had to rest again and hit that last rep. So anyway, all in, chest felt pumped, it felt good. The biggest thing I felt off the back of benching was my forearms, not my wrists, like my actual forearm pump. I was like, oh my, I could feel it on my wrists, but when I was like driving up to the track, I was like, oh shit, man, like these are tight. So we got to the track. I think I want to say it's about 9:30 at this point, maybe even just after that, and the track is frozen. The track is like covered in snow and frozen over, but it wasn't too bad to run on. I can't really play that. People are like, oh, you're mental for running that, but see, full honesty, it was easy to run to start with. When it started to get warmer, it was also getting more sludgier and slippier. That's when it became a challenge, but it wasn't actually that bad. So yeah, do a wee quick shoot, and off we go, 9:30. And to be honest, everything was going well. Everything was going really well. I had the fuel, I had my hydration, I had the game plan, but ultimately all game plans work well until they don't. And the first hurdle was maybe 90 minutes in, the stomach cramps and sorry for lack of better words here, but the bumhole like cramps as well. I just thought I was just straight up going to shit myself. So I was like, fuck, I'm going to need to go into the sports centre. Luckily the sports centre's there. However, I thought this was going to be the most ultimate karma play. So when we kicked off, I ran 1 lap. The guys came out from the sports centre and they said, look guys, the track is shut, you can't be on the track. And I thought to myself, you are kidding me. There wasn't a part of me who's like, okay, this can be an excuse, just do it another day. But I was like, nah, I've started the challenge. I'm doing this, whether I run round the outside the track or whatever, I'm running. And I just said to the guy, I was like, look, respectfully, I know you've got a job to do what you need to do, if you need to phone the police or whatever, but I'm running on this. I know it's my safety that you're concerned about. Running on it ain't that bad, but aye. And he was there was 2 guys that were pretty grumpy initially, and I can only imagine you're going up, you're telling people to go off the track, and we're like, no, we're not leaving, in a polite manner. So anyway, the guys were like, right, cool, you can't have the dog on there, blah blah blah, like you just need to be out, and then they sort of left. So that was good. But then 90 minutes in, I come into the sports centre begging. I'm like, hi mate, is it alright if I use the toilet? And I don't think he registered who I was first. He automatically was on like auto customer service and was like, yeah, on you go. And I went in, exploded my guts out, 5 minutes, back out, and I was like, cheers mate. And he was like, no problem, but he had a different tone, so I think he realised, oh shit. But anyway, on the hour, it was like clockwork. I needed to go back into that toilet for the first, I think it was up until I was past the marathon. So it was up until 50k that was happening. And it was horrendous. It was just, the food wasn't, I don't know if it was the food. I was changing up the food. So I started with Squares bars, and then I changed to Haribo's and nuts, and then I tried a bit of a bagel or a pastry or whatever it was I had, and I was like, fuck, I'm going to need to go to these gels because I literally can't chew. Just everything's going to make me, it feels like I'm going to either throw up or I'm going to shit myself. That's an interesting feeling, and if I'm being fully honest, I knew that was going to be the hardest bit. Training, yes, there's a physical element of 100 kilometres that you need to be adapted to. And my physical adaptation is a half marathon that I'd done on Christmas Day. So that's another part to this story. On Christmas Day, I said to Jill, I was like, we've got nothing to do up here. So our plan was to always run the longest run we've ever done together and have fun. And we ran a half marathon, and it was all right. It was tough, but it was okay. So up until this point, I know a physical element of the 100 kilometres was challenging, but now the biggest thing would be fuel, because I've never had to do anything with fuel. I only train in the gym for an hour and a half. Strength training is a lot different to endurance training, and I knew it would be a more, right, you need to work up your gut. You need to test your gut. You need to push through with whatever your gut's saying. And later in the story here, you'll see that it halted everything. But anyway, that was happening. Ended up moving on to gels. Gels were actually tasted all right, but see, at that point, your palate, it's so weird. Your palate just disappears, and it doesn't matter how nice the food is. I could have had Nutella. Nutella's something I could take spoonfuls of that all day long. I wouldn't have wanted it. Like, my palate was gone, and it was just like such a, I say, that was harder than running the 100 kilometres. So I started to run behind. I was about 35k in. I was running a 6 to 7 kilometre, and then I think 30 to 40 was okay. That was like a 7 kilometres per hour, and then up to, no, sorry, my pacing was 7 kilometres, sorry, no, 7 kilometres per hour. My pacing was about a 7-minute kilometre, and then we started to move up to 8, and that's when I started falling behind, because I was struggling. I had to like slow my laps down to try and drink. I had to slow my laps down to try and eat. I tried to pause and just eat, but it just wasn't happening. The longer I was staying still, the colder I was getting. But I knew, because I was consistently sweating, my hydration was okay, so I was getting enough sodium in as I'm sweating. But there was a part, I think it was at the marathon, I'd stopped and I was freezing. Like my t-shirt, I had an Under Armour on t-shirt and a jumper, and it's soaking through, and my body temperature dropped, and I thought, fuck, this is going to be so hard to get back into the groove of this. So I changed my shoes, went into the changing rooms, changed my t-shirt and the Under Armour and a jumper, and then just got back out and just started moving the legs again. At this point, I'm up to about 9-minute kilometres here, and then because I'm so behind on the fuel part, it just became challenging, became so hard to do. 50 to 60, I don't know, it was a bit of a blur, that one. I had a lot of people running with me, and this is what I say about the whole day, like, honestly, it meant so much for every single person that came down there, whether you done one lap or whether you done 25 with me, or some folk even done like 30, 40. There's a Jill done a ton as well, and it meant a lot. And although I started, like, the conversation and the chipper that I had at the start, I'm obviously buzzing. That died down about 35k in, and I just had to listen to people talk, but it helped. I ran all of that 80k with people, and that was cool. And I had people running who never ran, and that was so cool. That kept me going. And I thought, this is nothing. Like, short-term pain for long-term gain here. And yeah, it just sort of cracked on. But as I started falling behind my fuel, that caught up to me on the 65 kilometre. If you follow me on Instagram, you'd have seen this is where I didn't realise you could lose your personality when running, but I started losing it. Just so monotoned, no animation, just absolutely beat up. And this is the first time I go into the car. This is the first time I sit down. So every time I braked at this point, The only time I've had to sit down was to go to the toilet. That stopped about 40k in. And then every time I stopped before, I done a set, not a set of squats, but I squatted down at the fence, stretched my knees out, stood back up, and then walked while I was fueling, and then started running again. But that completely crashed about 65 kilometres in. I was absolutely freezing. Went in the car to get a heat. Tried to eat don't know what it was, like a chocolate pastry, right? Started crying. Honestly, I wasn't crying because I thought I wasn't going to finish it. I wasn't crying because I thought I was going to let anyone down. I wasn't crying because I thought I'm going to let myself down. Emotionally, Jill was like, she's like, you crying? Do you feel you need to cry? And I was like, oh, uh-huh. And I was like, why am I crying? I started laughing at myself as well. So, or laughing internally, maybe laughing looking back at it. I don't know if I actually done that in the moment. So emotionally, this is where I start to break. And again, it's not like in my head at this point, I'm not thinking I'm not going to do this. In my head, I'm just like, I've got fucking so long to go. Like, how can I physically move and go on when my body's like this? So I sit down, get a heat in the car. I manage half a pastry, get 500 millilitres of water in, about 250 grams of sodium. So again, even that starts to drop. I should have been about a litre of water and about 600 milligrams of sodium. Anywhere from 400 to 700. I was trying to kind of guess and see what I needed. So have that, get out the car. Oh man, see the pain. Like I am trying to run, or I'm trying to even just walk fast, and I can't move my ankle. Everything just seized up so quickly, and I was like, fuck. Freezing, absolutely, I'm chittering, like my jaw's going, like so cold. But as I'm walking round the first lap, I try and do that marathon walk that you see where you're swinging your hips. I start swinging my hips a wee bit more, and then I start to find a bit of a rhythm. I don't know what my pace was at this point, or what you say, it must have been about the 10 to 11 kilometre. So I start picking up my pace, and I'm like, okay, I'm back to normal. Not back to normal, but I'm like, okay, I'm warm. And that was a bit of a win, because I knew that pain had passed. So in my head, I said, right, the next breaking point, and the next time I sit down, I'm going to get the boots, like the compression boots. Hopefully that stops me from seizing up as much. But even if I do seize up, I know I'll be able to move the legs. And it's a bit naive thinking that. Don't know how long. I think I run from 65 to 70 or 75. Can't remember which one it is. And I go back in the car. I think we hit midnight. Or did I run to 80 at this point then? Can't remember. It honestly is such a blur. I think I did. I think I pushed through to 80 because Jill had to go home, and no, because I didn't put the compression boots on. So I stopped at 70, between 70 and 75. Compression boots went on this time. Don't feel emotionally damaged. Like the thoughts going through my mind, it's hard because there's a lot of people with me at this point. A good group of people, and I'm just listening to all those conversations. I'm getting involved in some of the conversations. I try to be nice, try to be pleasant. So in a way, that sort of takes your mind off it. Anyway, as people start to leave, I'm like, right, I'm going to have an hour break in the car. I need to get more fuel in me because I've got no power in these legs. I generally have nothing. So I sit in the car, compression boots on, try and get the pastry in. It's not gone down well. I was hoping to get that in because that was an easy, like 35, 40 grams of carbs. Try and take a gel again. It's so hard to force that down. Get a wee bit of water in. Compression boots on. This is the longest I stayed down. So the time before was about 15, 20 minutes. This time was maybe about 25, 30 minutes. And I felt that. Getting out of the car, freezing again. This time I'm trying to walk faster and I can't. And I'm like, fuck. And I'm trying to go and I can't. About 20 minutes passed, I think it was, and I think the fuel from the half a pastry I had starts to kick in, and I get a wee bit of a sixth wind, and that keeps me going, and that made me realise, shit, I need to get fuel in me or I'm going to struggle to finish this challenge. So as I'm doing it, Scott, Gio, and who else was left? I think Scott and Sam came out a bit from Rivals. Gill's there, of course, Nicola and Sam were there. So after that second break, everybody else goes home. Scott and Gio stick about, and they stick with me until about 82k, 80k. And this is where reality hits. I was hoping to be finished by 11 p.m. and this is about midnight. And Scott's saying stuff to me like, here, look, you're going to need to pick this pace up, because if you don't, like, you're going to be here for another 5 hours at this rate. Like, do the math. And I hearing that, I was like, it wasn't like I'm not finishing this. It was like, fuck, I don't want other people to have to, like, stick around with me. That, like, that's so shit on them. I don't know why that was the first default. And as it got to midnight, Scott had to go. He had his breakfast club, and also Gio left as well. He had his seminar with Lee Priest, so just after 12. And I kind of needed that, if I'm being honest. I needed to be alone and really get into the grit of this challenge. The whole point of why I was doing it, up until this point, if that 80k was 100k and I ran with people this whole time, I don't think I would have got most of the benefit of what I got in that last 18 kilometres. So I think it was 85 that the guys ended up leaving, or 82, right? So I have 18 kilometres left at midnight, or 16 kilometres. I'll need to go back and check my snapshots in my time. This took me 5 hours. This, let me kind of hash that out. 80 kilometres, right? Managed to get wrapped that up in 14 hours. The last 16 or 18 kilometres, whatever it was, took me 5 hours. My body felt like I had zero fuel in me, and I tried to put fuel in me, and it wasn't doing anything. I was so far behind, and I just couldn't do it. I was actually thrown up, but not thrown up anything, if that makes sense. Now that way you hurl, like I was doing that every 5-10 minutes. I had that uncomfortable feeling in my stomach, and I was running. My upper body's running, my lower body's not. And then I'm like, right, okay, let me try and walk, and then try and run, try and walk, try and run. And it's just, it was an absolute slug. It was a battle. The snow had melted away, which was quite cool. It's cool to experience that. And then the ice was gone, and then it started raining a little bit, and it was getting quite windy. And this was the hole. This was probably the darkest bit. And we had a studio hire in the morning, so I said to Jill, look, go in the car. Like, I know you're wanting to be here with me, but I'll wake you up. Like, I'll let you know where I'm at. I think she stuck around to about 87 or maybe even 90. I can't remember what it was, but Jill went into the car for a sleep, and I just tested to see where my mind was going. Now, the funny thing about this whole thing is, there wasn't one bit of this was where I was saying to myself, you can't tell people you failed. You look like an idiot. Actually, it was the opposite. I was like, I could comfortably and confidently stand in front of someone and say to them, here, I tried 100 kilos and I never finished it, but I'm proud of what I done. Do you know the thing that managed to push me through most of this? It was my word. And that's what I was very surprised at. I said, it was back to that initial feeling of saying, you said you couldn't do something and you're now attempting it. Now, there's an argument there. You haven't trained for this. You haven't done anything. But all of that became irrelevant at that point. I thought, no, you said you were going to do something. Okay, it's going to take the next 4 hours. Are you ready to commit to those next 4 hours? And I was like, yes. And that's where the hurt was. I think that's where I started getting a bit emotional, where I was like, I'm saying, I don't know if I can do this. Like, I literally said that to Gillian so many times, and I never believed it internally. It's like I had a different voice in my head, and this is, I want to tell you about this because this is fucking wild. So as Gillian goes in the car, the voice in my head, there's a part that's like, oh, you can't do this. And then I start, like, I'm running, I managed to get a run pace, but my run pace must have been about 14 kilometres an hour, or a 14-minute kilometre, sorry, 15-kilometre minute. Like, it was so slow, but it was as fast as I can go. And every step I'm going, you are not giving up. I'm literally saying that out loud, and I caught myself, I was like, what the fuck am I doing? And my conscience was taking over a bit. I don't know how to explain this, but I was talking to myself, meeting the stuff that I was saying to people. It's like, I don't know if I can do this. It's like, well, don't do it then. You're the one who said you would do this, and it was important for you to do this. If you don't want to do it, then don't do it, but you're going to walk away with this when you had more in the tank. And like, I'm saying all this mad stuff to myself. I'm running around at one point, and I'm even saying to myself, imagine having a podcast called Bulletproof Mindset, and you give up at 87k or 91k, whatever it was. And I thought, fuck's sake, like, I start laughing at myself. I was like, what is going on here? Real life hallucination. Very conscious of what I'm doing, because I bring myself back and laugh. I don't know if anyone's ever on their own and they just talk to themselves, they just talk out loud. I'm doing this just now, recording in front of a camera, obviously, but it's different. That was a hit. That was so different. I started chanting mantras. It's like, you will pass this. This pain will pass. This is only temporary. Like any mantra that came into mind, I'm saying it. And then there was even a part of me, because in that poll, the guys who voted that I'd give it my best attempt, I was like, people want to see you fail. I'm sitting saying this, 93 kilometres in 94. And then I'm like, right, cool, I'll go, I think I get to 97. I'm like, I'll go wake Jillian up because she wanted to be there for the last bit. 97, 98, I'll wake her up. And then I'm like, fuck man, I've still got another 40 minutes to get that last 3 kilometres done because I can't physically move. And I'm struggling. And I nearly copped it at the end, like one more lap. And I said to Jill, I was like, I can't do this. I'm in excruciating pain. And the pain wasn't injury. The pain was just joint repetitiveness. Like maybe I guess it could be classed as the same injury. I've never had like a severe injury, but it was just wear and tear of the body. My chest is cramped. Well, my chest actually started cramping up at 70 kilometres. It was totally fine up until that point. My rear delts, my neck, lower back's fine, core was fine. Quads were okay, outside of my knees, yes, and then mainly the ankles. Anyway, we get to 99, or lap 249, and we do lap 250, and all I'm thinking about is, I cannot wait to sit down and get in a bath. It was a bit of an anticlimax, you know. I think on one part of like this whole thing being put together like quite last minute and rushed, it was at the end I was like, wow, it's not really hit me that I've done that. Even just now, a couple of days later, doesn't feel, I don't know, I was actually thinking, I was like, I'd be cool to go back into that. I wish I was back at a part of that process. And I think that's maybe highlighting something I've said in the show quite a lot of times, is the journey is almost the part that's overlooked, the whole setting the day up, having everyone come out, all the conversations, the unknown. Like, I'll never be able to do that again. Like, I'll never be able to go and run round a track for 100 kilometres not knowing what my capabilities are, not knowing what my potential is, because I now know that I've done it. And even if I do another attempt at it, it's not going to be the same. And it's so hard to get into that frame of mind that when you're going through this, there's a couple of times when I'm running around and I'm like, just try to soak in what's going on, because it's so crazy. You're just like, fuck, here's this challenge I just put together that I'm finally doing. Might overcome that fear of like that doubt that was in my head a couple of months ago. And then there's another part, it's like, what? There's going to be so much to gain from this. I'm not doing this to like impress anyone else. I'm genuinely done that for me, for my own word. And that's what, that was an unexpected, I guess, highlight off the back of it. So, challenge finished, got home, got into a bath. You have never seen a guy get into a bath more icky in your life. I honestly had to, like, imagine your traditional bath, you take one leg over, blah, 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 you squat down, you sit down, right? Or that's how I normally get in. I had to go into the bath on my hands and knees and then twirl round and splash everywhere. I fell asleep a couple of times. Like, I fell asleep and woke up. Jill was paranoid that I was going to fall asleep in the bath and drown. So I was conscious that I was only in it for like 5 minutes. It was so warm. Into bed and then fell asleep like a stiff plank. And that pretty much wrapped it up. The DOMs the next day, as expected, ankles, quads, calves not so bad, but my knees, like all the muscles and tendons around my knees, just inflamed, not even inflamed, just sore, couldn't bend them. My ankles, I couldn't much range of motion. But tell you what, see my chest and my rear delts and my, like the upper part of my neck, like my traps, the sorest pain I've ever experienced. I didn't think I'd tore anything. I don't think I'd injured anything, but see the pain that was going through that, way sorer than the legs. Everything was equally sore. Day one, legs got moving yesterday. I could walk up and down stairs and I could probably run today. So this is 3 days after this, at the point of recording this. But see my chest just now, I'm 3 days after. I still can't lift my hands above my head. I had to sleep with like pillows under. The pain was so sore, which well surprising. So surprising. Legs feel good. My legs are okay. My foot's a wee bit sore, but like I think that's just just running 100 kilometers without testing it before. So yeah, that was the challenge in itself, and I'm proud. I'm extremely proud of myself, but I'm more proud of everyone who is taking something off the back of that and decided to do something themselves. So running through, like, kind of real quickly, there's a guy, Tommy, right? Tommy came out, and Tommy messaged me the night before, and he's like, I never ran a kilometre before in my life. I fucking love the idea of this challenge. Can I come in a bench 50 kilos 50 times at your gym? I'm going to try and run a 50k. And he gave it his best. He was out there grinding away, walking and running and just doing his thing, chipping away at it. I don't know how many hours he got, but it was daylight and then it was dark when he clocked out. I think he clocked out at 37 kilometres, like madness. I had my brother and a cousin come down who never ran before, and they'd done a lap. I think that was awesome as well. Had people coming out doing a 10k who'd never done their 10k, they'd only done a 5k. Like, all of that was cool. People come down with their kids. Honestly, so amazing. Even Graham, they get Graham, who's videoing behind the scenes, he's like, I'm not really a runner, but I feel like I need to get running stuff on and give this a try. So got him into it. Like, so cool. And this whole thing, this whole experiment, as I said, this whole challenge itself, it's not to highlight, like, you can run. We can all run, and if you want to get into running, then by all means go for it. But it's more to highlight that your mental strength has way much more than your physical strength. My physical strength tapped out 65 kilometres in, like it absolutely did. It's the mental component that fires up that central nervous system, that gets the blood flowing, gets the bones moving, gets the tendons working. It's the mindset, not the mindset, but it's those mental signals that are firing that part up. And if you've got a thought in your mind to say you can't do something, then you're never truly going to do it. And you need to push through those things, or those hardships, the challenges, those things that you're telling yourself you can't do. There is some amazing wins and mental gain that you can get from picking a couple of challenges and overcoming them. And I don't mean do anything crazy what I've done. Like, I've heard a lot of people saying, oh, I could never do that. And I said, weirdly enough, that's how I've started this. But back to the conversation I had with someone in my Instagram DMs, where they were saying they could never go into the gym. Like, it's so scary to walk through the doors of the gym. You can get the same benefit or the same win, the same mental strength from me running 100 kilometres by walking through the doors of the gym. Like, how well does that? And that's all life is. It's those little micro adversities that just stack up over time, that then leap on to bigger bounds, leap on to maybe bigger challenges, but ultimately grows you as an individual. I don't know what's next for me in terms of the challenge front. Got a couple of things I want to do, like, just personally, to be like the best at something. But I think I guess I now hold the title for someone who's completed 100 reps of benching 100 kilos with a 100 kilometre run around a track in the same day. That's cool to have, and I would never change that for all. But see, the process that went into that was cooler. And I'd like to train for something. Like, training is probably the smartest thing to do. 5 minute mile, 500 pound deadlift in the same day is something that I want to do as well. But think about things in your life that you're telling yourself, oh, you couldn't do, you could never do this. And fitness is something that, I don't know what it is, there's just so much gratitude in it. There's so much joyful feeling of not necessarily just doing the event, but completing something. Like, whether it's your first gym session, your first time tracking your meals, your first time gaining strength, your first time squatting, your first time deadlifting. There's just this joyful win that you get off the back of it. So if there's anything to take away from this, is don't hold yourself back. It's not external factors. It's not anyone else but you. And I want to talk about failure, because I think I touched on this in the previous episode, that if I did fail, I would be totally comfortable with that. Now, there was no fear of failing with this, and I think this is an important part of the conversation. Fear of failing is why a lot of people don't start something. And I think that's where some nervousness came in the night before, because I'm like, shit, man, there's a lot of people who I have said that I'm doing this to. I've put it out to the world. I'm going to fail. But I made peace very quickly. I was like, well, if I did fail, then not that it's an excuse. I'm not trained for this. But I can fall back on that excuse. That ultimately, that's what I was thinking in my mind. But I'd be pretty comfortable to give this my all. And if I do fail, then so what? That just means, guess what? The next challenge is going to be successfully completing 100 kilometers and 100 kilo bench press, because the failure would almost give me data points of where I break down. Now, if I had to do this again, I've already got so much more learnings on how I would change up the day, the attire I was wearing, the fuel I had, the timings of the fuel, all that sort of stuff. So don't be afraid to fail. Like, you go to walk through the doors of the gym, if we use that analogy, and you go into the gym, or you go to it and then you turn away from it. Cool. What's going through your mind? Right. Even more judgment maybe from yourself as to, you think you're going to look like an idiot and all this sort of stuff. So it highlights some things that you need to work on. I don't want to push the boundaries of squatting because I'm scared in case my knee blows out. Well, is that a valid argument? Maybe, but are you willing to work on it? Are you willing to put in the work? And if not, then fair dues, but why not? That's what I was saying to Lindsay at Aroma, like the night before. He's like, why are you doing that? And I was like, why not? Is it because your knees? So obviously there could have been injuries, there could have been all these things that could have happened. Is there a bit of luck as to why they didn't happen? Yeah, potentially. But confidence going into this, that's why I felt good, because I knew the type of training that I'd been doing. And it's why I'm a big advocate of just like full body strength training, full body kind of compound lifts, because it carries you further. I get you might have aesthetic goals, I get you might have all these other goals, then cool, pick the training that tailors towards that. But there's generally no better that kind of ticks all boxes than full body routines, full body compound routines, because it hits all these little muscles that maybe come out when you're doing a repetitive run or whatever it is. So I'm very grateful and proud that we got it done. I want to thank everybody for the messages. I want to thank everyone to the stories, the comments, everybody who came out. Big shout out to Graham, who stuck there all day and grafted away. Big thanks to everyone who joined us on the track, and obviously Jelly as well, like helping me on those last couple of laps, but more importantly helping me get in and out of bed, and not even in and out of the bath, but up and down the stairs the next day as well. So yeah, that's a wrap for today's episode. As I said, you've got more in the tank. There's more in that mind than you think. Use this as an example to get out and fucking go after it. I don't care if it's a 1k kilometre. I don't care if it's your first gym session. I don't care if it's tracking your first meal. It's all relative to where you're at in your journey. And once you overcome that first barrier, once you overcome that first challenge, you're on to the next one, and the next one, and the next one. And that's where you stack up these wins and really have true resilience and ultimately have a bulletproof mindset. So on that note, we'll end it there. Thank you for everything, and I'll see you guys on the next one.